Welcome to our Thursday night Q&A. This is where we talk about the Georgic tradition, homesteading, farming, growing the best garden of your entire life, livestock, and all those fun, exciting, glorious things. So tonight we are going to be talking about some fun stuff. Because I wasn't here last week, so I went out of town. I was working on a consultation for a lady, and it was super fun. We looked at her land. She had 3 different parts to her land, so we are doing 3 different sections to that. So it's pretty exciting. Good stuff, but tonight is September 28th and week 68. Here are the 9 ways that I help people grow food. I've got a YouTube channel. We do a weekly Q&A, except for the nights that we don't. And those are on Thursday nights, and that's what this is. I have a Patreon channel for people to access. I have a laboratory to test your soils to see what is in your soil, to see if you have the living, active microbes to take care of your soil function so that you don't have to buy anything expensive and you don't have any toxic buildups and you're not building hard pans and you are infiltrating water. I have a 17-week boot camp. We're going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to share some of the pictures from this last year that we just did this summer because it just got done 2 weeks ago. We had our graduation. I have a 3-day boot camp that I teach, and last year I taught 3 of those. I used to call it an annual boot camp, but I did 3 last year, and I'm planning on doing 1 in January, so that'll be coming up. I'm available for consulting to help you have the best farm and garden ever so you can actually feed yourself. And my book is ready for order, so pop on Amazon and get my book. My book will make fantastic Christmas presents for people. And the last thing I do is a newsletter, and it comes out when I have something to say. So go to www.georgicrevolution.com to find the details about all of this stuff. In May of 2023, that is this year, my students arrived. They came here and we had too much fun. It was a fantastic summer. It was super great. I had 4 students. In this picture, you can see us being goofy, which was great. And so there's me and my daughter and the 4 students I had this year. And we had a lot of good times. You can see all the snow on that mountain. We had a good water year. We irrigated more land than normal. Normally, on a normal average year, we irrigate about 400 acres here. This last year, we irrigated a couple of thousand acres, which was pretty great. We grew a lot of feed and forage for the livestock, and much of that forage has not been consumed yet. We stockpiled it, meaning we just let it grow for winter. And so we'll have 600-700 calves coming in a few weeks, and they will be here for a couple of months, and they'll go home at Christmas time. And they're going to eat that down. They're going to spread their manure and their urine and their hoof prints and their saliva all over. And if that sounded strange, then we need to do some more education for you on holistic management and how cattle are the #1 ecological tool to bring back degraded land. And that's how they do it, is with their impact, which would be saliva, hoof prints, manure, and urine. And probably other things that we don't understand, but those are the big obvious ones that we know for sure have a big impact. Our students sat around this table where you can see these seeds, and we had fantastic classes every day. We planted gardens, and we sorted seeds, and we did all kinds of fun stuff. This is a multi-species cover crop mix, but it's an edible one. You can plant different kinds of garden mixes. And this is a picture of a multi-species edible cover crop mix. So what you do is you plant this. I don't remember. I think there were maybe around 30 different species in this mix. So you just take this all mixed up. You can see peas and beans and lentils and mung beans. There's probably 8 different kinds of beans in there. and there's dried beans, there's green beans, and then there's squashes, melons, sunflowers. And then if you see the little ones, let me get my little pointer here. Okay, see this little black dot here? That's a seed. That's probably a cabbage or a kale or a broccoli. And here's another one, and there's one, and there. So there were all kinds of seeds in here. And we plant this out, and they grow fantastic. They're beautiful, they're glorious, and they come up, and they are super fun. One of my students sent me a Marco Polo in the last couple of days, and she had some of this planted at her house. Her dad planted it during the year while she was here, and it was coming up, and it's beautiful, and the sunflowers were blooming. So that was super fun. And then, well, here's what we did in our class. Early on, we learned compost. That's one of the things we do the first month here. Our students are here for 4 months. In the first month, we try to master compost. The big problem in today's world is farmers' microbes are dead in their soil. That is the big problem. And that's probably the big problem with human health, is the microbes are dead in our bellies. So, but I'm not a human health person. I don't know much about it, but I do understand soils and good food. And that is the big problem with our soils. So we need to get these soils thriving. And how do we do that? We make compost, because a compost is the trap that collects the beneficial microbes so that we can get those microbes back into the soil. So here's some of our students working. It's kind of funny because in most of the pictures we took, there's only some of us because someone was taking the picture. Here we are early on, and we planted lots of food and flowers. This is actually a row of zinnias, and they grew big and beautiful, and they bloomed wonderful. We had a frost the other day, and it wiped them out. So now the leaves are dead, and they're just sitting there. So we're going to go see if there's viable seed on any of the ones that we wanted to save seed from, and that'll be fun. So this field had a lot of fun things in it. We got a lot of pumpkins out of this field. We had a few melons, we had squashes, a cucumber or two, and several handfuls of tomatoes, and there's probably other stuff, but we had quite a few different kinds of flowers. So this was a fun field here that we got planted, but this was early on towards the 1st of June when we were planting. That's when this picture was taken. Here's a picture of us irrigating the ranch. I mentioned earlier that we had a lot more water than normal, and we were able to irrigate thousands of acres this year. And this was a daily occurrence to go out and to move the irrigation water. Now, our irrigation water is not in a canal system like many places in the world. Our irrigation water simply comes down a natural creek from the mountain, and we're in the foothills of the mountain, so it comes down the creek. Whatever snow melts runs down, and it is up to us to put rocks in the natural little creek to get it to spill out and to go across the hundreds of acres. And so this is a typical view of an irrigation moment on the ranch here. And our students were able to go out and do this quite a few times. It was a lot of fun. Super, super beautiful and fun. Fresh air, wildflowers, deer. What else? I was going to say elk, but I don't think our students saw an elk this year. I have seen elk here, but it's not a monthly occurrence to see elk. But we would quite often see antelope and deer. Lots of fun wildlife around here. Here we are. Here's the a typical moment of the evenings in our class. We had lots of dinners together as a family so that we could get to know each other, we could mess around, and I wasn't just screaming all the time about soil health and nematodes and microarthropods and all the crazy things. So this was a common occurrence here on the ranch, during our 17-week class. Lots of fun, lots of food, and we really loved that. Here's how the class looks when we are in class. So approximately 3 to 5 hours a day we had class. And here we are on a typical day, and this is kind of how it looked. there's my 4 students, and there's me. I'm a little crazy. I'm not worried about being normal. We don't want that. So I'm just telling you that so that you can understand that this is okay. We make our students comfortable here, and we make them have an environment. We create an environment where the students can be themselves and have fun and not have to fit into a mold. I don't like that because it stops creativity, and we need to bring out the best in people. So I'm a little goofy in class, which gives my students permission to be goofy also. But here we are. This is our classroom. That's about how the table looked every day. Quite a few books, lots of notebooks, lots of sticky notes, writing things down, hashing things out. And right behind the camera on the wall, right where everybody's looking, is a whiteboard. Quite often, somebody would be standing at the whiteboard, diagramming things, taking notes, learning and understanding however we can. And this is also my soil laboratory. So the microscope is right behind me. I can see it there. It's right above my shoulder, and it's covered in plastic there. And we can take whatever we're looking at in the microscope, we can cast that through a camera on the microscope up to the blue TV screen that's there at the top of the screen that you can see here. So it's wonderful because we can see what's happening in the soil. If we have a soil sample from somebody's garden, we can see if we have too much bacteria, not enough fungus. That's usually the case. And so we try to get the fungus and bacteria balanced so that there are equal amounts. And we look for microarthropods. You know, I think at the beginning of this year, we saw the first stellate amoeba I've ever seen. Let me say that again, stellate amoeba. I've been looking at thousands of samples for years now, learning all this stuff and teaching, and I haven't seen very many stellate amoeba. They're kind of not around, but we saw some this year in a sample, and it was so exciting. And it was in our soil here on the ranch. So I was so excited to be able to see that little creature with these awesome students that we had this year. One of my students took this. Oh, that's supposed to say lamb's quarters. That was a complete typo. It's not land. How do you say that? Lambs. Can't even say it wrong. That's funny. LAMBS is what it should say. Lamb's quarters. One of my students took this picture. It was great because these are lookalikes. Now, to the trained eye, we can tell what they are. But to the untrained eye, these could be lookalikes. And a lot of times these things will be growing in your spring mix, your salad mix. And one of them is edible and nutritious. The other one is not really edible. And the other one is poisonous. So my student was brilliant, and she picked these and she took this picture. And it was pretty awesome because you know, it's a good thing to think about. So one of them is the poison nightshade, one's the tomatillo, and one's the lamb's quarters. Now, at different stages of these plants, it's hard to tell which one's which. But it was just super fun. Towards the end of our class, all of our students were becoming very ecologically literate, and they were starting to understand and being able to identify things. They were seeing how things were connected. They were seeing how things were disconnected and how things need to be connected. And so it was fun that they saw this and put it together. I really liked that. It was pretty great. And here's the next picture. This is, hold on, I'm going to manage this page a second. Okay, there we go. So this is a common scene around here. We would make lots of plates of food. Now, this plate of food comes from the farm, except for the ranch dressing. We didn't make the ranch dressing, although we could have because there's a milk cow nearby. We didn't really go that far in our class, and I think we should, but we need more than one teacher. But we had a lot of excellent food here, and we also had junk food, which we shouldn't eat, but we got to have fun once in a while. So this was a common occurrence to have really beautiful plates of food. there were great people here who cooked great food, and it wasn't me. I wasn't doing the cooking, but the students would get together and they'd cook all these beautiful, luscious things. It was really great. Purple potatoes. The purple potatoes did really good this year. They got pretty big, and I thought about not growing them. This is my fourth year growing potatoes here. The first couple of years, they did not do too well. Last year, they were okay. This year, they did excellent. And some of the potatoes that did really good the first year did quite poorly this year. So I'm happy because we have 11 varieties of potatoes, and I'm going to keep going with 11 varieties for a while because 2 or 3, 4 years is not enough years to test which ones are really the best for our area. Sunrise Gold did very well. Last year they were fantastic, and this year they were fantastic also. A great big beautiful potato. They're a lot like a Yukon Gold. I don't know that they get quite as big as a Yukon, but this year these sunrises did get bigger than my Yukons in under the conditions we had here. So that was pretty interesting. All right, here's the deal about potatoes. When you're digging potatoes, you've got to understand that every time you dig up a potato, it's just like opening a Christmas present under the Christmas tree. It's fantastic. So, it would get tiring. There were days that it was hot when we were digging, and we dug it all by hand. And one reason we're doing that is we're looking for genetic differences. We're looking for disease. We're looking for like genetic, what is that called? A mutation, a genetic mutation where a plant would do something totally different. Like what if we were digging Russian bananas and there was one plant that had purple Russian bananas on it? That'd be whoa, So anytime there was an anomaly, my students would tell me, we'd look at things. We didn't really find anything fantastically glorious this year, other than a really nice crop of potatoes in some of the varieties. Now, that's what I want to talk about with the Russian banana. This was a rough year. Most of the heavy yielding varieties did not yield very good this year. And the Russian banana yielded horrible last year. Last year, I hardly got any. I barely got enough to plant seed. I only ate one potato last year, and that was at our taste test at graduation, meaning one Russian banana variety, because they did so bad. But this year, they were great. Look at all those potatoes, and they're big, they're beautiful, they're long. Now, you got to understand, Russian banana is it's a fingerling variety, which means it's long and skinny. They are a small potato, and these ones were the biggest ones I've ever grown. So in a bad year, because it was hard, all the crops did poorly this year, except for 2 or 3 things, and Russian banana was one of them, and then that the purple one was fantastic too, the deep purple. So don't give up on your varieties on 1 year or 2 years just because they didn't do as well. You've got to spend some time and really figure it out. And not just potatoes, any food that you grow. Okay, here we are. Towards the end of our 4 months, it was the last 3 weeks. At the last 3 weeks, the students ate out of their gardens, and it was pretty funny. Look at this picture of Becca here. She's got carrots. She's got yellow crookneck squash. She has beets in a bag there, beet greens, chard, and I think that's a bag of lettuce. And then she's got those big, giant turnips, and that's what the leaves are up above. Now, they were eating from the garden, and these kids, I call them kids. They weren't kids. They're fantastic human beings, but these kids were pretty awesome because they were worried through this whole course that, oh man, we're not going to have any food to eat. What are we going to do? I assured them the purpose is not to starve anybody to death. I just want to get you to understand what it takes to actually feed a person. So what if you have a big family? What if you get married and have kids and you have got 10 kids? And I mean, what kind of a garden do you actually need to grow to feed a group of people? What if you want to run a business and you have 50 customers trying to feed their families? What does that look like? What kind of a farm do you need to have? So I wanted them to instill this into their brains so that they could figure this out. And so this is toward the first of the 3 weeks when this picture was taken, I think. So the funny thing is those turnips. These guys were adventurous and they started eating turnips, but they made a mistake and they mixed the turnips in with the other food that they were eating. And so a few days in, I'm like, oh, how's your dinner tonight and all this stuff? And they said, well, it's really good, except I had to cook new food because the other day when I put those turnips in, it ruined it and I had to throw it out. They did such a good job on their garden. They had the luxury of throwing food away. I remember pioneer stories of people and all they could grow on some really bad years was turnips. And that was their food supply. They had 14,000 turnips and the cattle were happy and the people weren't, but they had food to eat. Thank goodness they had livestock or everybody would have starved to death. Okay, this is a typical plate of food that the students ate. They had these beautiful creations that they made. All these different fun things that they would grow and then cook into these gourmet meals. This was not a cooking class, but some of them were pretty good cooks and they helped the ones who weren't. And it was really fun. So every day I said, take pictures of what you're cooking, because we just wanted to document what was happening. But nobody went hungry, so that was pretty awesome. And then we graduated. Everybody graduated. We put together a big old graduation. So there's me, I'm the guy in the tie, and then Becca and Kirsten and Abigail and Will. So those were our students this year. So they came, they learned, they passed the oral exams, which wasn't easy. I was kind of a mean oral exam person. I kind of made them know their stuff. So one person would stand up in class and I would ask them like everything that everybody's supposed to know, about 70 questions or something. And then the next person would get up and I'd ask them about half of those. And then I'd change a bunch of the questions and mix it up, make it hard. But it was fun. And what happened is these guys became ecologically literate. So if you are going to go to a new planet and start a new colony of humans somewhere, you want to take one of these guys with you because they understand the fundamentals of how ecology works. And here's another picture. I made them a gift at graduation after we gave them their certificates of completion. I like to call them diplomas, but some people argue with me. So we gave them dibbles. I'm holding a dibble in my hand. A dibble or a dibber or a dibbler are 3 correct ways to say the same thing, depending on where you come from in the English-speaking world. But this is a stick with a handle, and it has a pointed end that's kind of hidden behind my arm. And you poke holes in this garden soil, and that's how you put your transplants in. So it's a gardening tool. And they were excited to see it. They didn't know, so I pulled this out and I handed them to them. And they were excited, super excited. It was a fun gift. So I just made these middle of the night one night when they were sleeping. I came over here to the shop and whipped them out. Took me a couple of days to get it all done, but it was super fun. So graduation was fantastic, and now everybody's gone home. And we had a good year this year. So this was really long, and this is our Q&A, but I just wanted to share with some of you who maybe have not been informed about our 17-week course. This was a very, very short snapshot of what happened. There were a lot of other things. There were a lot of other, like they had a bunch of requirements for graduation, and they did some fantastic accomplishments while they were here to set a foundation for the future of their lives. Therefore, we're going to move on to questions. And I'm going to stop my screen share. And go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat and you can ask me your gardening questions, and I will do my best to help you with anything you may have going on right now. And if you want to share something fascinating in your garden, you can do that too. And as soon as we have a pause for like 20 seconds, I'm just going to push end. So goodbye and good night if nobody's unmutes. Oh, that's funny. We're going to end this. 20 seconds is almost here.
I unmuted.
John, let's hear your question.
Oh, so we spent a month in Missouri and got home, and the beetles had our cantaloupe and whatever else, the squash.
Yeah, that happened.
Now we're leaving for a month and haven't harvested everything. Not everything has come in. We've got tomatoes that'll ripen while we're gone.
Nice.
I figured that what I'd do is just let it all die on the vine, and it'll be that much better of soil next year, I hope.
That's a good idea. Leave it there. Just let it decompose right there. That's good. Maybe in the middle of the winter, maybe in January, it could be a good idea to go out there and just anything that's still standing up, you can smash it flat. Just walk around and tromp things down. The closer it is to the ground, the more moisture it will absorb, and then the microbes can decompose it quicker. So that's a good idea. Just let her go.
So what about next year? I'm looking toward that. Of course, I'm not pulling out any roots or anything. I'm just leaving it in the ground and then planting around it. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just get a dibble, a pointed stick, poke a hole in the ground, and stick your transplants in.
So you're going to go into selling those, making and manufacturing those?
Yeah, maybe I will if you want one, John. What I need is one of my students to come to make a business out of that. That's one of the things, that's a requirement for graduation. Each of the students identify a need in society, and then they start a project. Like it could be a business, it could be a one-time service project, whatever they want to address the need that they identify. And so but one of them, we need somebody at some point to start manufacturing fantastic tools. It's hard to find good tools. You can't find a good dibble nowadays. They just don't make them. You can get them on Amazon and they're like 5 inches long, so you have to bend over. Nobody wants to bend over.
Yeah.
Well, not when you get old.
The drills were kind of like that too, 20 inches long, and that's not quite long enough. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Don, what's that garden place in Canada that you can buy? Is it Lee something?
Oh, Lehman's? I've heard of Lehman's.
Oh, and Lee.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look.
Yeah, if you find a great place, Melanie, let me know.
Okay, they're not cheap though, and they have them down here. They have it in Canada. They get beautiful catalogs, like all kinds of tools and hardware and all kinds of neat things.
Nice.
So maybe I don't need the tools. I'll just look at the catalogs.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Zeke.
So I have a bunch of tomatoes that I think I'm going to get 2 more weeks out of them, but then we're going to have a frost. And I'm wondering if it'd be better to cut them while they're green and put them in my compost, or if it'd be better to kind of just stomp them flat and let them rot on the ground. What do you think? Because I am going to be doing a hot compost this winter, and I always have trouble getting enough green stuff. But if it's better in the long run to just let them sit on the ground, I'll just leave them. What are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you for the context, because context is everything to every decision. Here's the deal. Since you need material for a compost, you better start gathering up that stuff now. So go ahead and get it now and start making your compost. If you weren't going to make a compost, then it's extra work to remove all that stuff. Now, if aesthetics matter and you want your garden to look a certain way and you don't want it to look like a jungle, then you better move them. So there's some different reasons.
Thanks. What about green tomatoes as fruit and similar things, actually using fruit as compost? So my question is, should you stomp them flat or cut them open to compost them? Because I put probably 30 gallons of apples that fell off my neighbor's tree and were just rotting there. So I wandered over and said, hey, you going to do anything with those? And they let me take them all. So I probably put 30 gallons of tomatoes into a compost. And it's taken them a long time to break down.
Tomatoes or apples?
Apples, sorry, apples.
Nice.
And so I'm wondering, for my green tomatoes that might not ripen up, if it's generally best to stomp them beforehand, or if I'm just impatient and my apples wouldn't have broken down any faster if I'd cut them all up. But just thoughts.
Oh yeah, good thoughts. Try it both ways. Let me know how it goes. Hopefully that was helpful. Sometimes blending up, chopping up fruits is a good idea. Other times it's not a good idea. It depends. If you have 7 unruly 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds who need work to do, and you can make the work a lot of fun, go ahead and chop them up. If you're 65 years old and you have other projects in your life, don't chop them up, just compost them. Let me clarify that. It's not going to make any difference in your compost whether you chop them or not. Okay, any more questions? I'm going to start the 20-second timer. Oh, Kirsten, go ahead.
I don't know if I have any questions, but I could tell you stuff that's happening in my garden and my yard. It's exciting.
Okay, share. Quick.
So I was walking in the front yard this evening, and I didn't think there were any mushrooms out there because, yeah, the grass has been mostly dead and nothing will grow. But I was walking past there and I saw this huge thing. It was dark, so I couldn't tell what it was. And I looked over and I was like, what the heck? Is that a bird sitting on the ground? So I turned my flashlight on and there was this huge mushroom growing out of the ground in my front yard. So that was exciting. But yeah.
Nice. Nice. So Jill Clapperton is one of our foremost what do you call those people? Scientists on mycelium, fungus. And she said that when you walk out into your field, on your farm, or in your yard, and you see mushrooms popping up, you know that you are arriving to a good state of soil health. So that is a quote from Jill Clapperton. She's one of the top mycelium people in the world. What do you call a mushroom scientist? I think there's a name for it.
I think it's mycologist.
Oh, that's right. That is right. That's what it is. Thank you. Yeah, intellectual capital. That's when you surround yourself with people smarter than you so that they make you look good. Thank you, Ezekiel. Okay, we had a good night. Let's plan on next week, same time, same place, same link for the next 19 weeks. I just got a new link on here today. So today was the first one. So the next 19 weeks, this is the link. So save this link and it'll be easier to get on than trying to look through Facebook, trying to find it. Share with your friends and family. And one note in closing, if you want to watch graduation and see my short speech and the speeches of my 4 brilliant students, then you can go to my YouTube channel, or if you're a Patreon member, it's on Patreon. So that is there. The whole thing's there. It's unedited, uncut. It's beautiful. There was a young child, the age of maybe 1.5 or 2 years old, who was toddling around, and I think she saw my red light on the. I had one of those stupid things that what are they called? And you plug everything into it, it goes in the wall. And they had the red light. So I think she pushed the button. So you get to see the whole thing unfold. The terrible thing is my wife was the camera woman, and she's sitting there watching the whole thing unfold. I'm up there trying to give a speech. It was supposed to be an intelligent one. I don't know if it was or not. That remains to be voted upon. But my wife's watching this, and that little toddler is walking around. She thought, my wife knew it. She totally called it. That child is going to unplug his computer. And she enjoyed that. She thought that was wonderful. And I thought that the technology just
Well,
went.
of course I enjoyed it. It was marvelous.
But once I realized it was a toddler who did it, I thought it was fantastic. I haven't even watched this recording. But anyway, go watch the recording to see how awesome the students were. That's the main reason to watch it. And I am closing this out. Good night. Same time next week.
Thanks, William.
You guys are welcome. Good night.